morning, it's Shanna. Today I want to talk about decks that I trust. These are decks that no matter how difficult the question might be that I'm posing to the deck, I know that I'm going to get a straightforward, no nonsense answer, and it's going to be accurate. It's going to make sense. I'm not going to have to dig and pull at the answer in order for it to make sense for me. And so I got new bookshelves a week or so ago. We just put them up a couple days ago, and I've started pulling out all of my decks, which was a big process, but a lot of them went downstairs, and I started realizing that while I don't have very many that I want to rehome, I do have a lot that I have just because they're pretty, or just because they're cute, or maybe because, it has a specific purpose. But in that process of moving all of the decks, I realized that I have this small curated collection of decks that I turn to time and time again for these moments that I feel like I need a particular deck to get the job done. So I wanted to kind of go over them today. I feel like I have a lot. I think I'll limit it to 6 because I feel like I've got 12 here. I guess we'll go through the first 6 and see how long it's been and then decide. So, sorry, I have cat fur and stuff on this. Okay, so the first deck probably won't be a surprise. So this is the Little Bird Tarot. This is the deck that I created. And for obvious reasons, I trust this deck. I created it. I curated the images to suit how I view tarot, and I wrote the book. So naturally, it's going to make sense to me, and I'm going to be able to pull it out, ask the question, and, work with the guidebook, which I enjoy because I don't remember all of the plants on all of the cards. So it's fun to go through and see the correlation between the plant and the bird and the question that I've asked. So for that reason, I trust this deck. And I feel like because they're birds, you don't get that human. Sometimes I feel like, let's say specifically, sometimes I feel like when I use a deck, I get judged, which maybe sounds silly, but specifically the Somnia Tarot. I've talked about this multiple times. And to be fair, I have been working with the Somnia Tarot a lot more these last couple of weeks, and I feel like I'm starting to come around to it. But my point stands that sometimes a deck, especially with people, can feel like it's judging. And when I have a problem or I need that support, the last thing I need on top of that support is being judged. Does that make sense? Probably. Sometimes I start talking and I'm not sure that my sentence makes sense. Also, okay, good. FedEx just pulled up and I'm like, great timing. My dogs are going to bark. Anyway, this deck feels gentle and comforting. It feels like a warm hug, a warm blanket. It kind of brings me back to those days where I was, sitting in front of the computer, flipping through picture after picture after picture of Audubon's images, trying to find the exact image that would correlate with the meaning of the card, in addition to the spiritual meaning of that bird, or the magical meaning of the bird, or, something to do with their color. So there was a lot of thought that went into this. So it does lend itself to being trusted. I can't imagine working with this deck and not trusting it. And for me, that's really important. I don't know. Maybe this is normal. Also, this is not the whole deck. I am using this deck this month for the Tarot Advent, so some of the cards are not here. I have kind of an issue, if you will, with trusting, and I think the idea of, is tarot real, can sometimes play into you know, questioning whether or not what you're seeing, what you're reading, what the cards are offering to you is accurate or true. But these decks, I don't really have that issue with. So my next deck is Tarot of Echoes, and I'm going to kind of pull these in together because I work with these specifically for ancestor work and veneration. This one is specifically to my grandmother. I've mentioned it before. I can actually make some space here. So these are not something new and unique that I've talked about on this channel, but I guess I'll just do one at a time. But I trust this deck implicitly, simply because, should we put them together? That might be kind of nice. I don't know. Let's see what they look like together. I'm not sure if I've used them specifically together. No, I don't know. Let's work with one at a time. Okay. So this is The Forager's Daughter by Jessica. Terrible with names. Obviously, I'll link everything below. She's got an oracle deck in the works. Keep an eye on that if you're interested. Okay, so this deck, I love her guidebook. Every single time I have worked with this deck specifically to have a conversation with my grandmother, I get the most profound answers in that there's no way that when you get an answer about, I don't know, I keep talking about this one specific incident. I don't do ancestor veneration a lot. So there's been 2 specific instances where I've sat with this deck and, whoops, oh, my Christmas lights are falling. Oh, good. Okay, I guess I'm pausing. Good thing there's pause. Swear words were said. Anyway, this deck has been very specific. When I ask a specific question, it gives me a specific answer that correlates specifically to my grandma. And so, for that reason, I trust this deck. I believe that it understands what I'm asking. I believe that it gives me the answer, the true answer that I need to hear. It's not just making things up. It's not just throwing cards at me. It doesn't just appease me in the moment. It's accurate to a T, like goosebump accurate. So my grandmother was legally blind, and one of the entries when I asked my question, I pulled a couple of the cards, and the guidebook talked specifically about being able to see in the dark. And you can't make that up. And so this deck is my grandma's deck. And when I need or want to talk to her, when I'm feeling lonely or I need advice, like, this is the deck I come to for advice, because she was always so good at giving me advice, and she was funny about it, you know, like she was a spunky old grandma, and I think she'd be tickled that I was talking to her through a tarot deck. This would be her card specifically. She loved cardinals. So yeah, for that reason, it's kind of a narrow reason, but valid nonetheless. And this deck just feels, I can't even really use the word cozy, because for me, that's not the word I would use. Comforting, I think, would probably be a good word. So yeah, and this is a beautiful deck. It shuffles nicely. The backs are gorgeous. This is the 2nd edition. This is the Afterlight edition. She does have a 1st edition. It's just called The Forager's Daughter. And the backs are a little different. The colorations are a little different. And honestly, now that I'm talking about it, I don't know why I haven't pulled it out. So I will be doing that after this video, because it's gorgeous with the green and blue and burgundy colors. It's very, very 90s Christmas to me. So that is The Forager's Daughter. Okay, next let's talk about the Tarot of Echoes by Anatorian. Oops, sorry if I bumped the camera. The Tarot of Echoes is interesting. I have her Oracle, the Oracle of Echoes. And when I saw this, I pretty much knew I wanted it. I wasn't 100% sure how I would use it, and I'm pretty stuck on the idea that I need to have a job for each of my decks, which is fine. I don't mind that, and I don't mind boxing myself in that way, generally speaking. But sometimes I get a deck not knowing how exactly I'm going to use it, and this is one of them. But when I started doing ancestor work, or excuse me, not ancestor, but past lives work, this summer with Rochelle over at Amethyst Ascension. I said that weird. Amethyst Ascension. And also Carrie over at Carrie's Mystical Musings. I pulled out this deck and it blew me out of the water with how versatile it was in getting me answers about past lives. And so this one quickly fell into a past lives work position and has not budged. It's just perfect because I feel like these characters are timeless. I think their clothing and their hairstyles can be really any time frame. I mean, I guess you don't see a lot of women, with these long dresses type thing, right? But overall, I think realistically, this could be any time frame. Modern, it could be 1800s, 1400s. You get the idea. And so the answers I received when I worked with this deck regarding past lives were so specific. And this deck doesn't even come with a guidebook, but just the people on the cards, the landscapes that they're in, the clothing that they're wearing, are they wearing a crown? Are they crying? Are there other people involved? It was so spot on to what I was asking. And I don't think I could ask for anything more when it comes to wanting to trust a deck. And so for that reason, this is definitely one that I firmly believe knows what the hell it's talking about, for lack of a better term. And so I would say that this is one of the decks that will sit firmly in the forever decks for me. And like I said, as I was putting away my decks, shuffling them out of one shelf and putting them in the new shelf, I realized that I have maybe a dozen that fit into this slot for me. So that is the Tarot of Echoes by Anna Torian. Obviously, well, I was going to say I'll link everything, but I already said it, so I don't need to say it again. Okay, next up for decks that I trust. And this one's a brand new one. I believe I bought this just this summer, is the Coastal Curiosities. This deck, and I'm actually going to, oh, maybe I didn't. Okay, pausing again. Okay, sorry. I had to go get another deck because I wanted to talk about it alongside this, or in addition to. So we'll go through this one first and then we'll move on to the next. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. This deck took me by complete surprise. It wasn't one that I wanted when the Kickstarter was going on. I saw it in a few shops. I live on the coast, or I live near the coast of Oregon, and there were multiple times where we took trips to the coast and we would stop at a restaurant, that had like a shop within the building. And there were at least 2 times where I saw this deck and I was like, I've seen it. It's not really my thing. I don't need it. And I passed it up. And then for some reason this summer, I just had this pull that I needed it. Like there was nothing that was going to get in my way of getting this deck. And so I popped onto eBay and it was there and available. And I snagged it because if there's one thing I've learned is that if you want a deck, A, don't go looking for it if you don't have the money because you will almost always find it. And B, if you're going to go looking, snag it. If you find it, snag it, grab it, you know? So I did, and I got it home, and I immediately fell in love with it. I've said it before, but these multiple color backgrounds are just, they're my kryptonite, like every time. So I wasn't really sure how I wanted to use it. I knew I liked it. I really like the keywords. I love the concept that everything on the card has a meaning. So the seashell, the flower, the moon, these circles. So you're going to have these different shapes on each of the cards that symbolize something. So we've got the flowers, we have the diamond, and I thought, you know, so there was one weekend that my husband and I were going to the coast, and I thought, you know, I want to bring my ocean deck, which we'll get into. That's the next one. But I really wanted to take an oracle with it, and I thought, you know, it's Coastal Curiosities. This is going to be perfect, but I wasn't really sure how well they were going to work together because they're quite different art styles. Like, you know, this is collage with vintage type things, but I took them anyway. I thought I'm just going to give it a shot. We'll see how they play out. And I'm just going to finish quickly getting through those cards. So I took the deck and I took them to the coast, to the ocean. We went down one day to go look for glass, sea glass. And this is my ocean deck. This is the one that I take with me whenever I go to the coast. Let's slide this guy aside for just a minute. And when I put them together, I was pleasantly surprised by how well they work together. This is probably not the best way to do this. Should we do it like this? Is that in frame? Okay. So why do I trust these decks? That is the point of this video after all. This deck speaks to me on a level that no other deck has before. And by that I mean I've never been an ocean person. I grew up in Utah. You know, in my 30s we moved to Texas, and I enjoyed the coast there for what it was, the beach, but it was hot. And honestly, you know, if you've ever been to the Galveston beach, it's a little murky, a little bit dirty. You know, Galveston itself is fine, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my God, I love the beach, we need to go there. It's speaking to my soul. But when we moved to Oregon, all of those things became true. And this deck helped me find that energy, and now I have, like, I crave to go to the coast. I think about it all the time. We're actually looking to potentially one day retire on the coast. I mean, I don't know. You retire in Florida, or you retire on the coast, or you retire in Arizona. I feel like there's, you know, you've got your classic places, and the coast is one of them. And these decks they take the energy of the ocean and the sand and the waves and the sun, or the clouds and the rain, as the case may be here in Oregon, and they manifest in a way through these decks that speak to me in a way different than any other deck that I own speaks to me. It gives me these deep, meaningful, thoughtful answers that I don't really get from any other deck that I can think of. It's like they speak a completely different language than any other deck I own. I don't know how, I guess you guys get it. But I love the way these two look together, and I'm not exactly sure why they work, because like I said, they're obviously different art styles. Maybe it's the colors, I'm not really sure. But they were an instant bonded pair. The first weekend I took this deck out with the Oceanum, I'm so bad at this word, I don't know. As soon as I took Coastal Curiosities out with the Oceanum Arcanae, I knew they were a bonded pair. They were just, I mean, look at this. They're just perfect together. And the feeling that they elicit in me when I'm using them and I'm on the coast and I can hear the waves crashing and the birds, you know, up ahead or up above. You guys, I cannot speak today. I don't know why. Just gives me a feeling that I almost want to say I'm addicted to it. Like it just feels good. It feels right. It feels perfect. Like these two decks were meant to be together to speak to me, with me. And so for that reason, I trust these decks implicitly. And they're two decks that will not go anywhere, especially because they are in such a niche spot for me. So yeah, that is the Oceanum Arcanae. This is the back. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the Little Bird Tarot back. Hold on. I don't know why I feel like I have to show you this, but we're going to look at it anyway. I mean, look at that. It's so similar. That's funny. Okay. And Coastal Curiosities. This is, oops, that's not the back. Shoot. This is the back. Okay. Next deck is, this one's also new. I believe I brought this into my collection this summer. The Southern Botanic Oracle by Stacey Williams. I always want to say it's Wynn, but I'm pretty sure that's not. I think that's a different spelling, a different word. Please forgive me. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last part of her name. This deck quickly fell into a favorites for a couple of reasons, a couple of very specific reasons. And I'll flip through here in just a minute. One of my favorite things about this deck, and I believe it's Spanish moss. I could be wrong. I would have to look, but I won't do that right now. One of these cards specifically talks about perimenopause. And I have never seen any other deck do that in any capacity. And so for me, because I'm literally in the throes of that right now in my life, it was an instant bond. I just, you know, honestly, for multiple reasons, it's a bit of a struggle right now. I guess it is in general, but this deck came at the perfect time for me. And so when I saw that, I just felt connected to it. And when I put it with the Herbcrafters, it was a perfect match. And I just feel like the Herbcrafters, and I think others have said this as well, it's just that it has that wise woman energy. I don't know if necessarily crone energy would be what the word I would use, but wise woman energy. And they just speak so clearly, so succinctly together that they were an instant bonded pair. I can't really imagine using either of these decks with anything else. Now that I say that, this might be really pretty with Little Bird Tarot. I don't know. I'm not sure I've tried that before. Maybe I have. I can't remember. This is not if so, we'll say that this is not a monogamous deck, right? Oh, so sorry. I'm missing the titles here. I should zoom out just a tiny bit. No, let's not. It's okay. There's this fine line between wanting to get as close as I can and coming out of frame. Anyway, the write-ups in the Herbcrafter's book are they feel so meaningful, and that they feel like the author is speaking to me in the moment. Like if I were to pull this Four of Water, it would be as if the author and I were sitting here at this table. We would hear the birds, this blue jays in the background. And the write-up in the book is them sitting there talking to me. It doesn't read like a write-up. It reads like someone who cares about you and wants the best for you is telling you these things. And I've never had a confusing reading with this. That being said, the Herbcrafters is a deck that I rehomed and then repurchased. I rehomed it because, oh my goodness, have I ever noticed the hummingbird here before? I don't think I have. I love that. And because it was so early in my tarot journey, I had no idea what I was looking at. Ace of Air, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand the court names, so I just thought, you know, I can't do this tarot. I am going to rehome it. Whoops. And then I want to say maybe a year or so ago, for whatever reason, I say for whatever reason, this deck was meant to be mine. And it was like, hello, you shouldn't have rehomed me, because now you're going to have to purchase me again because I'm meant for you and I have things to tell you. So I did. I repurchased it, and, you know, at that point I understood tarot more, so I could work with this deck in a way that worked for me. So the fact that they go together so well, they feel like home to me. And that's that. That's why I trust these two decks. I love that this one has 2 keywords in addition to the plant, because a lot of times I would put the oracle in the middle, as we do, and a tarot on either side. And so I would correlate the left keyword with the left card and the right keyword with the right card. This is not a new thing, but it is a way that I enjoy using it, especially with decks like these where you've got those 2 keywords. So that's that. The Herbcrafters, I don't know, there's just something about the energy of this deck that feels so special and unique. I don't know. Oops, jeez, throw things. And Southern Botanic Oracle. These are the backs. Okay, and my last, nope, I have 2 more. Journey of the Sacred Bee. This is firmly slotted into July. The energy is just very hot, very fiery, very July. And I think, I don't know. I wanted to say, I feel like this deck was the first deck that made me realize I wanted to work with them monthly, but I don't know if that's true. But much like the other decks, this deck just gives me the straightforward answer. There's no hemming and hawing. It's clear, but it's deep. It makes me think. I ask the question, it gives me the answer, but it makes me think. And it invites me to ask more questions, which I love that. Sometimes you'll get, a deck and it'll answer your question and that's it. Move about your day. But this one almost requires me to ask follow-up questions. And I love that. Not only for journaling, but also because I feel like I want to better understand where I'm coming from for myself. Like, why am I even asking this question? Why do I care? Why should I care? And this deck will tell me. And it's never lied. And it's done some amazing, I don't want to necessarily say predictions. I do enjoy using tarot predictively sometimes for myself. I know a lot of us here on YouTube say that we don't, and that's fine. But I do. I like to use it in a divinatory, predictive kind of way sometimes. It's fun. And I find it fascinating and goosebump inducing when it's right, Especially when it's months later, which I've learned this multiple times, that if I'm going to ask a predictive question, I absolutely have to write it down, because if I don't, it'll be 2 or 3 weeks later and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I ask? What cards did I get? Because this thing happened and I swear that's what the cards told me was going to happen. So this deck excites me, and I think any deck that can excite you and you also trust is a keeper. I wish I had a good example for this one. I really don't. I just think it's pretty. I like the tactile experience of it. It does not riffle shuffle, although I lied. It does riffle shuffle. It took me a while because it is quite stiff. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it does chip the gilding. But I've come to terms with the fact that I'm okay with that because I want to use it, and shuffling for me is, you can kind of see a little bit here, maybe. Shuffling for me is part of the experience, and if I can't shuffle it, I feel like what's the point for myself? So you can kind of see, and I'm okay with that. I really am. These are the backs. Gorgeous. And yeah, that is Journey of the Sacred Bead. I adore this deck. I don't have any of her others. I know she's got, I believe she has another tarot and maybe 2 oracle. I don't know. She has other decks, so that's that. Okay, my very last deck, and sometimes I feel, I don't know, cliche when I bring up this deck because it's a beloved deck by many of us, but I'd feel bad if I didn't mention it because I do use it a lot. It's very much an everyday deck, and I've used it for some readings that have really touched me. And I think for that reason, it's a deck that I can trust, and that is the Green Witch Tarot. This is another one of those that I saw on Dawn Michelle's channel a lot. And I just thought, oh, it's not really for me. I don't really like it, but I kind of liked it. So I put it off, and then for whatever reason, I decided to get it. I think I found it secondhand on eBay. And the funny story about that, well, funny to me, I did get it secondhand. It came in the box, and this book is blue. And so I panicked that maybe it was like a fake deck, because I thought, why would you call it Green Witch and have a blue book? It made no sense to me. So I went on Facebook, one of the tarot groups I'm in, and asked around, and people were like posting pictures showing me their decks that they knew were real, and assured me that yes, it is in fact the real deck and book set. So this deck I have taken to my daughter's house multiple times. My middle daughter, she just turned 23. She got married last year. They live out in the woods, and once a month I go out there. Once a month she comes here. It's about 45 minutes from us. And I like to take this deck and read for her because I feel like this world very much feels like where she lives. Obviously more modern, like they don't dress like that necessarily, but I feel like they would if they could. So this deck has given me some exceptionally insightful and accurate readings. And so I feel very bonded to this deck with my daughter. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like her deck. Like I wouldn't say that I would only use it for readings about or for her, but it has her energy in it, and I loved taking it out there because I feel like it sort of absorbed the energy of where she lives, and I love that. I trust this deck because it's been very honest. The readings that I've been given by it, that does not make sense. The readings I've had with it are accurate and spookily accurate. I don't know what my problem is today. Okay. It's a sweet deck. It's like an older sister. I can't quite say like a mother. It doesn't really feel like crone energy. It doesn't feel like wise woman energy. It feels like an older sister, like a very much older sister. Like she's got your back. She's going to keep your secrets. She's going to tell you like it is. And even though, maybe you didn't always get along, she's gonna be there for you. She's there for me, right? And I love this deck for that. And I trust it wholeheartedly. If I don't really know another deck to go to, if I'm you know, I kind of have just one of those everyday questions, I come to this deck. It just has that energy for me, and it's unpretentious. And I feel like this is an important deck for me in my collection. So for that reason, I trust this deck. And I adore it. So, and I think with that, that is my last deck. Those are the important ones, right? I mean, I have others that I really love, others that I like to use regularly, but these are the ones that I trust. No matter what my question is, if I need to know something in that moment, I will come to one of these decks. So I'd be curious to know if you have decks that you trust in the same way. If you want to do a VR, that would be great. If you want to just comment below, that would be amazing. I love reading your comments. I appreciate you guys being here every week. And so that's all I have for today. I will catch up with you guys next week. Bye.